The most important element in scaling a business is not speed, it's clarity. And all of the individuals that I've seen that become really big and successful, they figure out how to get really clear on what really matters, and then that's what they work on.
You're watching the Marketing Misfits with Norm Farrar and Kevin King.
What's up, Norm? How you doing, man? What's going on?
Doing awesome. Thank you, Kev. It's actually warming up here in Canada.
It's about damn time, because I'm tired of listening to you about your nuts freezing when you go outside to smoke a cigar.
Yeah, and I got to keep taking that knife out of my back every time you talk about Texas weather.
Yeah. Well, see, in Texas right now, I can sit out on my balcony. I was out there with Zoe the other day. You know, I was like, man, Norm would be jealous of me right now, sitting out on my balcony, overlooking the river, overlooking downtown. Zoe there, barking at airplanes and barking at birds flying above. And just imagine if we had a good cigar and a good glass of whiskey for me and a Coke Zero for you, what that would be like. And just the stories that would come out. I mean, you never know what's going to come out. Just like you never know what's going to come out on this podcast.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we did this podcast, because so many stories came out on your bloody balcony.
Well, it's not just the balcony; it's everywhere. You know, we talk about the origins of this podcast, and the origins of this podcast were us going to Paris for Howard Ty's big mastermind, where he did it in this castle outside of Paris, like an hour outside of Paris. We're sitting around one night after dinner. And if you haven't heard the story, I'm going to tell it really, really fast. We're sitting around after dinner one night. There's 10 of us or so around this campfire. We're dropping logs on this campfire, and we're sitting around just telling stories. You know, some of it's about life, some of it's about business. And you and I just looked at each other. You know, we're smoking cigars. Some people are drinking. And we're like, this is really cool. I'm getting more value out of this than I am out of listening to a bunch of presentations.
Logs of knowledge.
Yeah, it was cool. And, you know, our guest today, I've done the same thing with him. When I first met our guest today, this guy is he's like a legend in Austin, Texas. Not just Austin, but he's a legend across the world. I don't think there's a more connected person. You know, we know some connected people in our space in Amazon that are pretty well connected. This guy, his Rolodex, he knows everybody and everybody. And when it comes to business and marketing, he's a master. And I remember when I first met him, he does something called the Internet Marketing Party in Austin, where every month, it's usually on a Thursday night. I've been to a couple, and after one of the parties, I don't even remember how it happened. We ended up going, and somehow I ended up at his house. And it was like six of us. Yeah, I think I drugged him. I gave him a piece of chocolate or something. I don't know, but somehow I ended up at this guy's house, and on the way, you know, he said, "Hey, meet me at my house. We're going to do a bonfire, roast some marshmallows. Can you?" I was like, "All right." So he's like, "Can you stop and pick up some marshmallows on the way?" And I was like, "Sure, no problem." I'm trying to find this address. It's on one of these streets, and it's like numbers 200 to 1,000 are here, and then the road stops, and then there's like, you know, 2 miles of nothing, and then the road continues. And so I find this little place, and I get him, and I go into his house and show up. And it's in this front yard. This front yard's got this fire going, like this bonfire right in the front yard. I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. And then around the fires, there's a handful of people. And it was the same thing, just sitting there, getting to know each other, talking business, talking life. And that's what this guy is all about. I mean, and I'm really excited to have him on here, because I think there's nobody better at marketing and connecting marketers than this guy. If you don't know David Gonzalez, then you need to know David Gonzalez, and you need to go to one of his events, because the connections and the changes this guy can make in your life and in your business are huge. This guy, I'm super excited, man, to have him on the show today.
I just want to know one thing. Maybe it's a Texas thing, but you got 2.5 miles, you said, between the road. Was there not another name that they could come up with? Like,
I know you would think like give the road another name on the other side of this, but I was going all over the freaking place trying to figure this out. I'm exaggerating. It wasn't 2.5 miles, but it was a break in the road. Like
I don't care if it was 100 yards, but you know, I think there'd be another name. All right, let's bring in David.
Hey guys,
what's up, David? How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's just been fun listening in the background because I guess it's like the proverb. It's the digital green room you had me in. I could hear you guys talking. Um,
How
and it's
you
the
doing, man?
second Thursday of the month, by the way.
It's
You said
second
second.
Thursday. All right, all right. So I did get it right then, right? I said second
No,
week.
you said second Tuesday of the month, but that's
Oh, did I?
probably
Oh, shoot.
right
Okay,
because you've
sorry.
been eating too many of those chocolates.
I think I have been eating too
The
many
brain
of those,
drained out of your
those
your
chocolates.
top head.
No, I did. I did. I did. Norm was staying with me back in December for when you did the internet marketing party here. We did a thing together for Christmas. We did a big Christmas party, and you brought in like Hal Elrod to speak, like this amazing guy, uh, and it was great. Norm was at that event, but
Yep.
Norm was staying with me during that. And you're talking about chocolates. I take care of my guests, and so Norm is into gummies. He loves gummies. So every
Regular
night,
gummies.
regular gummies, not the CBD, whatever, but the just regular sugary gummies. That's one of his little treats that he treats himself with. And so he had run out, and so I had some here that he didn't know. I bought him knowing he was coming in, so just to make sure I have some. And so one night I put some under his pillow. I actually took the little bag and put it under his pillow and didn't tell. So he goes in, Kevin, after we're smoking a cigar and having some drinks or whatever, he goes in, see you in the morning. It's like 2 a.m. Goes in there, gets in the bed, sticks his hand under the pillow to organize it, and here's a bag of gummies. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
The next day, he got me dog ice cream.
Yeah. I didn't get it. You ate it.
Oh, you had ice cream for your dog in the freezer, and Norm made himself at home.
I had the little, like those little Bluebell cups, those little like individual cups that you do at birthday parties. I had those in my freezer, and next to it, I had the little Frosty Paws, which are dog ice cream. You get, they're actually a little dog. Dog licks it, and right next to it, they're little cups that look at. But the way the cup looks, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you don't have your glasses on, it looks like it's like birthday cake flavor or something because the little designs on it. And so Norm actually grabbed one and started eating it at like 3 a.m. because he had a little snack, a little snack. Gets through about part of it, and then goes, this kind of tastes kind of funky, kind of weird.
Like
so
bologna.
he looks at it, figures out what it is, and he's like, this is embarrassing. So he goes to the trash can and buries it. He's like, I don't want Kevin to see this on the top, so he buries it underneath everything. And doesn't tell me until a couple of days later we're at dinner and he tells the story. And I could not die. I could not stop laughing for like 10 minutes. It was just so freaking funny. So that's a running joke we have now. Norm, make sure I have dog ice cream the next time you come for you.
Were you caught? Were you barking?
Oh, I was howling. That's for sure.
He was licking parts of his body. He normally doesn't lick.
Yeah.
Nothing like bologna flavored ice cream. Like it's just.
Bologna flavored. Oh, that's that what the flavor was?
Yeah.
It's like a meaty flavor or something. Yeah. It's great. It's great. So when was that we did that little bonfire? Do you remember when that was? That was a while back.
It was at least 5 years ago, minimum.
Yeah.
I haven't lived in that house for over 5 years. It was pre-COVID. I know that.
Yeah, it was definitely pre-COVID. It was pre-COVID. I think it was pre my wife too. So it might have been
because you didn't need to ask. Because you didn't need to ask for permission to go anywhere.
So, there's another interesting story I have to tell you, Norm, on this. So I just I guess David, you knew you had met my wife, and I filed for divorce. I just became final just recently. I actually got the court order and everything is final. But one of the final straws of this was David was doing an internet marketing party, and it's like he called me up like a month before and said, "Hey, I'm doing this special VIP thing. It's a special party, or I forget the exact reason, but I want to have some special people there. You want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to come." He's like, "Can I bring my wife?" It's like, "Yeah, no problem. You can bring her too." So we actually, the day of the party, she decides that she doesn't want to go. She doesn't feel good. She has a headache or whatever. She doesn't want to go. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go because I told David I'd be there. I want to go. I want to meet some people. So I go. I'm at the event, and I get a phone call from her. Not a phone call, a text. "Where are you?" I'm like, "What do you mean, where am I? I told you I'm going to the internet marketing party." She's like, "Yeah, well, where is it? What's the address?" I said, "Why? Do you want to come?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about coming." I'm like, "Oh, that'd be great. Here's the address." So I give her the address. She gets an Uber, shows up like 45 minutes later. I'm watching the door, not going too far to make sure that everything's okay. I never see her come in. And then I'm walking around the floor of this place, and all this, David had given out these little bracelets, like these little light up bracelet things for it's a promotion or one of the sponsors or something. And I'm walking around the floor, and then she finds me. I didn't even see her come in. She's like, comes down these steps, these stairs, and like, there you are. And it's like, here's your bracelet. And I'm like, what? Here's your bracelet. I wasn't even on the list. I'm like, what do you mean you weren't on the list? She's like, I came to the door and I wasn't even on the list. I was like, you were on the list. David put you on the list. It's like, no, he didn't. You didn't want me here. You deliberately, you lied to me, you this and that and the other. Long story short, she goes storming out. We get in a little tiff in the front of the entranceway there for a little while. She leaves. I said, I'll go home with you. She's like, no, you're not. You're not coming anywhere with me. So I go back in. I'm like, David, I was just joking with him. I was like, I got another drink. I'm like, David, you got me in trouble. And he's like, I was just kidding with him. He's like, what do you mean? No, what? So my wife said she wasn't on the list. He's like, no, she's on the list in like 5 places. He pulls out his phone, shows me. She's on the freaking list, like everywhere. And I was like, so here's the mistake I make though, is I come back home and, she's sitting out brewing on a balcony. And I was like, she's like, so did you have a good time? I knew you didn't want me to be there. I was like, no, I wanted you to be there. I invited you. I absolutely wanted you to be there. She's like, well, I wasn't even on the list. I was like, no, you were on the list. I was like, I saw it. David showed me. She's like, so you trust David over me? I said, yeah, I do. So that's a few weeks later, I filed for divorce. Oh. So that's a true story.
Yeah. I remember being there for it. I remember you telling me about it. I remember feeling horrible, and I was like,
it wasn't you at all.
For a split second, I wondered if maybe in the hoopla, because when you put on events like this, sometimes it's easy for little things like that to slip through the cracks, either because I thought I did it and didn't actually follow through, or I did it but it didn't make it to the spreadsheet, or I did it but by the time I did it, like they printed the spreadsheet and the name didn't make it. There's so many things that could have happened. So when you told me she wasn't on the list, and I don't know if you remember this, but you playfully said, dude, not only get me in trouble, you're gonna get me divorced or something. And then
decision had already been kind of made. So this was just like the final straw. So I have David. I owe David big time. I have David to thank. Like, David, thank you. You changed my freaking life. The internet marketing, I can give you the testimony. The internet marketing party changed my life. It made me execute on move forward on a decision that I hadn't been making.
Well, I can tell you this. One of my bucket list items was to be an officiant at a wedding. And a few years back, a dear friend of mine asked me if I would officiate his wedding, his wife's wedding. And so I did it. And I did it at this place called the Wizard Academy out near Dripping Springs.
That's a badass place.
There's this gorgeous chapel overlooking the Texas Hill Country. And what I decided to do, and this is going to go over some people's head, but if you've ever seen a certain movie, that you will know the moment that I say what I'm about to say. So what I did is I had everybody walk in, and I had, obviously the groom was up there with all his groomsmen, and then the bride walks in, it's the song. And then, like, I just stood there quietly for at least, and I'm not exaggerating, 45 seconds, and just looked at everybody in complete silence. And then I proceeded to say, marriage is what brings us here together today. And if you've ever seen the movie The Princess Bride,
yeah,
and both my friend and his bride were fans of that movie, but they didn't know I was gonna do that. And it was just like it was just like a pretty ballsy move, because if you don't know what it is, it's like, what the hell?
This guy been drinking? What the hell is this guy?
And then I brought it back together and stuff, just said, hey, and then I made it like really, really sacred, and I had everybody make a wish in their mind's eye for of one of the most romantic, loving dreams they've ever had for themselves or someone else, and to give that level of energy to to the couple, and that's what I did. Kind of like when you at your birthday, you close your eyes and make a wish. I had everybody close their eyes and make a really romantic, deep, loving wish for the couple. So I
That
didn't
place
keep it. I didn't keep it fun like crazy like that. That would be disrespectful.
that place is awesome. I mean, if for those of you who don't know, that you might have seen this. I mean, this is the Marketing Misfits. The guy that owns that started the Wizard Academy is a marketing misfit. He's one of the sharpest guys when it comes to direct marketing, or especially he specializes in radio. But he wrote the Wizards of Ads books. You can look them up on Amazon or whatever. There's a series of 3, and he went out. This is something you should do, David, with your connections. He went out and he actually interviewed all these successful entrepreneurs and wrote like 2 pages or 3 pages on each one of them with like a marketing tidbit, or it was like a couple paragraphs of like their story. Who is this person? And then it was like, this is how they got to what they did, and this is the marketing strategy. Put these together in a book called The Wizard of Ads, and had a series of 3 of them, and it was freaking amazing. And then I remember going out. He started doing these little
Friday.
meetups. Yeah, he had the Friday email or Monday morning email, whatever it was called. It was like this badass email that would come out before there was really newsletter emails or anything. That would have a tip of the week, and then on Fridays he would do these things out. And he had at first it was out in Butte, a little suburb south of Texas, south of Austin, and he would actually have you could pay a couple grand or something like that, and he'd have little marketing meetups or ads or bring people in. But it grew so much that he went out and he bought this property out by the Salt Lick, famous place out in Austin, not too far from that barbecue place. And he up on this top of this hill, and that's what Dave was talking about. And he built this whole like academy, like with dorm rooms and like a chapel. And it's got a like a crazy ass scotch and whiskey room that's just like got like I don't know 5,000 different bottles or something in it, some crazy number like that. And this chapel is free to use. So he's like, anybody wants to book a wedding here, it's free. You don't have to pay. But it's a stunning place. And this guy, the Wizard of Ads, yeah, it's a really really cool. Did he ever speak at one of your
Yep.
It's Roy Williams, right?
Yeah.
He spoke at one of your events, right?
Mm-hmm. That video is in the members area, internetmarketingparty.com/join. You said
there you go.
I wouldn't be much of a marketing misfit if I didn't plug my thing, right?
That's right. So the internet marketing part, let's talk about that. I mean, Norm, you went to the one that we did with Hal with the Christmas one. Have you ever been to any other of David's internet marketing parties, like at Traffic and Conversion or some of the other ones he's done around that maybe are not in Austin?
No, I haven't. I've heard great things, but that was the first time I actually briefly got to meet David, and I couldn't stop laughing in that costume. By the way.
that was great. Little Santa Claus.
Yeah.
But so where did the concept come from for this? I mean, you own an agency. You've been doing this for a while, or tell us the backstory.
No, yeah, it was real simple.
How did it come to be?
I sold a business. I had $1 million a year hypnotherapy business so I had money and time, and I was going into real estate, and I was right before the 2008 crash. So, I had a friend named Michael Lovitch, who ran a company called the Hypnosis Network, and he was making millions of dollars selling hypnosis CDs on the internet. This was way early on. It was pre-Facebook, pre-YouTube. It was, back 2006, 2007. And I called him up and I said, hey, man, I want to know more about this stuff, because I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, and I was like, this sounds a lot like what you're doing. And he said, yeah, come on up. We do some friends of mine named Kevin Wilkie and Matt Gill, the founders of Nitro Marketing. We're up here in Dallas and Fort Worth area. And once a month we get together and we do this meetup, and you should come up. And I was like, okay. So I came up there, and I found out there was all these guys in Austin doing digital marketing. This guy named Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher and Mike Dillard and Steve Gray and Jordan Hall and Mike, what the heck's it was just this big group of folks. And so we would all get in a car and drive up to Dallas once a month. And one month on the way home, we were like, what the hell are we doing driving all the way to Dallas? We should do these in Austin. And somebody said, yeah, David, you definitely should. And I was like, I guess, okay, sure, I'd be down. And then the next month, a guy named Eric Louvier posted in Warrior Forum, which is an old marketing forum. David Gonzalez is hosting the first, we used to call it the Austin Internet Marketing Entrepreneur Network, which the acronym is AMEN, or Amen. And so we did the I just decided to do the first one. I did it at this bar called Six Lounge, which Lance Armstrong used to be one of the co-owners too. And it was right at the corner of Fourth and Lavaca,
Uh-huh.
or Fourth in Colorado, no, Fourth and Lavaca. And the first one was a lot of fun, and so we did it again the next month, and that was a lot of fun. And about 4 months in, Michael had the idea that we should have a speaker. And the objective was to create a big email list, because this was back in the day when there was this guy named Jeff Walker, Frank Kern, Andy Jenkins, and Mike Filsame. They were all part of this thing called the Syndicate, where they would all promote each other's big product launches, like the StomperNet launch and the product launch formula launch and the mass control launch. And they'd make $100,000 a month. They basically make a $1 per subscriber per email. If you had 100,000 subscribers, you could make just stupid money every time there was one of these launches. And so Michael was like, dude, we should start bringing in a speaker and then record the speaker, and then like have that be content that we can get people all around the world to subscribe and become members. And I was like, that sounds cool. And we did it another month and another month, and a month became a year, and a year became 5 years, and 5 years became 10. And we just celebrated our 15th in
Jeez.
September of this past year. And it's just keeps being fun.
And you haven't missed one, right? I mean,
Not
I
as,
think you said not a single one, even during COVID. You switched to virtual for some of them, right?
yep, that's
But
correct.
you've never missed one.
No, I mean, I've actually even had it to where there was 1 or 2 months where I didn't run the party. I just had somebody else run it, but the show went on.
And then you did them. I don't know if you're still doing it, but you were doing them like at Traffic and Conversion, and at yeah, I think you did one at Funnel Hack. Was it Funnel Hacking Live or it was something
Yep,
in
Funnel
Orlando?
Hacking Live, Capitalism Conference, Paleo FX. Basically, sometimes people will say to me, "Hey, I've got this conference I'm doing, this seminar I'm doing, this workshop I'm doing," and if they have enough traction, they're like, people like starts on Saturday, so people are flying in on Friday. If you like, it ends up being a win-win, because us doing the party, we already have the brand of people know, like, oh, there's going to be an IM party, and so when we promote that, they're like, oh, well, what's going on, and then they find out about the other thing, and so we end up saving them from having to do a kickoff party, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's and you get to benefit, like you're saying. Some people that are coming to that, they learn about you, and some people that don't even know about that event, they learn about that event because you're hosting a party. Like, oh, I might as well stay for the other thing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it ends up being a big win-win. And yeah, had just a bunch of great folks on our stage. And um
And
it's
these
been
aren't little players. I mean, just for y'all listening, if you've never been, these aren't like, okay, little internet marketers. These are the who's who. I mean, you just had Dave Asbury just recently,
yeah, Dave
talking.
Asprey, Noah
And I was taking
Kagan.
notes. I mean, we're in this thing. I'm holding a drink in one hand and listening to Dave talk, and then he says this quote that's about once you reach a certain level in business, you have to start taking care. I'm paraphrasing here. You have to start taking care of yourself more than you're taking care of the business, or something along those lines.
Yeah, he said when you're a leader in a business that reaches a certain level, your new job becomes personal development.
Yeah, and I
Like,
was like, "That's really good." So I'm whipping out my phone, typing this note so I can like quote him in my newsletter or whatever. But so I mean, that's the level of people that you're bringing. So how long did it take for you to actually get to that, to where this type of people were like, "Yeah, I'm coming," because I'm assuming most of them, you're probably not having to pay or anything. You might have to be
no,
given a hotel or
I've never paid a speaker um ever to speak. And even though many of them charge a speaking fee, and they fly here on their own dime,
oh, they do. Okay.
yeah, and they put themselves up in a hotel on their own dime. And it's just something that, because when we first started, it was just absolutely bootstrapped. It was just a hobby, fun thing. It was just, we would get shit faced all afternoon and then get them on stage like where they could barely talk. It was based on originally on the idea that, like, when you go to a conference or a seminar or workshop or any industry event, there's the people on stage. And then we always thought it was funny that, like, the main place where you do deals is at the bar, right? Like you're like wheeling and dealing, like making deals, joint ventures, and strategic alliances. And we'd find that sometimes it's like, oh, we'd stumble into the conference room and we'd hear the speaker, and they were just like a stick on a law, bump, they just like had a stick up their butt. And then they'd get off stage and they were like like they'd take off the mask and they'd be a normal human being again. Like on stage, they were this just saccharine, like crappy
Yeah.
version of a human, that's like, hi there, I'm here, like, like sales pitchy kind of thing. And then they'd come to the bar and be cool, like just like a regular human. And we're like, what happened to the guy on the stage? Like, you're way cooler. Like, so we decided it would be cool to have a speaker in the bar and get them shit faced, and like they don't have permission to sell anything from stage because it's not really cool to be getting people drunk and having them buy, like it's just a weird thing. So it was always just about having it be a place where like there isn't a like, oh, we're VIPs, so you like we're over here, you're over there, and like it's just like kind of like a watering hole where like, everybody's all the same. And yeah, so this guy might make $80 million a year and this guy might make 80,000 a year, but at the end of the day, the guy making 80,000 might be the perfect, video editor that make the person making 80 million a year, that they make 80 million a year, but they've got 8 followers on YouTube, and like, they can help each other out.
Yeah.
Like how much money you make, the guy making 80,000 a year might be the best person ever for the guy making 80 million to scratch their itch of getting notoriety. Because a lot of times I'll know people who have become very wealthy, but they actually envy the guy that's making like 8 million a year, because the guy making 8 million a year has like 80 million fans on YouTube, and they're making 80 million a year, but they don't have any fans on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
And
kind
so
of like
sometimes,
the athletes. Athlete wants to be an entertainer, singer. The singer wants to be the athlete. It
yeah,
happens all the time. It
yeah,
sounds like, sorry, David.
no, you're good.
Oh, it sounds like an organization that's out there. It used to be called YEO. Now it's
Yeah, it's still
EO.
around.
Yeah. But they've changed the name. I think it's EO now. And it
Yep.
used to be awesome. They bring in people from. You had to have a certain amount of sales, but the events, man, you could just sit there, have a drink, talk, guard down, and you could learn a lot more just having that one drink. And they brought in speakers too, but it was like at a peer level. So it was really kind of cool. And to build a network, it was awesome. You got to
Yeah.
meet so many people.
Yeah. In fact, I'm an EO alum, and
Me too.
but yeah, cool. Yeah, that's how I've always enjoyed interacting with really intelligent people that have creative ideas and make the rubber hit the road. So
So you started off with getting them drunk, and these guys speak for like 15 to 20 minutes typically, right? It's about a 15, 20 minute.
yeah, it depends. If they're really good, it'll go 30 to 40. And I say really good just because sometimes, even if the content is really good, sometimes they just suck at delivering it. And sometimes their delivery is really good, but they're just not really like, it's like, hey, we're here to do. You could be standing next to somebody that could make you another $2 or $3 million next year, and
What's
like,
some of the what's a story that you've heard? Like you're telling this 80,000 to 80 million guy, or what you just said. Are there any anecdotes that you can tell us about someone that came to this that's a really cool story about how they made a connection there that just really transformed their life or their business?
I would say there's a bunch of them, but one of them is a guy named Adrian Brambilla, who's one of our guest speakers, and we did a think tank for him, and he had his first $1 million day a few months later as a result of having that done. I've had people meet there and get married. I've had people meet there and get divorced. I've had people meet there and build, oh, there's a guy on the website, if you go to imparty.com, that on the website he literally says that we should change the name to the $25 million party, because he made a connection there that yielded him $25 million within the next 24 48 months. I don't know if it was 12, it was 12 to 24 months. It was a year or two later.
You just mentioned think tank. I want to you kind of evolved it from getting them drunk and then putting them up on stage to where you started doing. I don't remember what point it was, but you started doing where the speaker would come in. So they're speaking. The party's at night, say at 6:30. That day, you get together at like 11, and
Mhm.
you'd ask the speaker like, "Hey, what are your pain points in your business right now?" And they say, "Oh, I'm having this," or something like that. Then
I
you
do
would
that in
curate.
advance. I do that like a month or
Yeah,
2
yeah.
in advance,
Yeah,
yeah.
you do, you ask, that's what I mean. You ask them in advance before they come. It's not like the day of.
Yeah.
And he figures out what's their pain points, and then David, through his network, would curate a list of people, some local, some that are coming in, and say, "All right, you're giving us value because you're coming and speaking to my audience, so let me give you some value back." And there'd be 10, 15 people or something maybe in a room around a big conference table, and they would just tear this person would tell them, "This is my pain points." David has a whole process for it that's really, really good, and they would help him. And he invited me to a couple of those to sit on the panel, to give some advice, and it was freaking awesome. And now you did that for a while, and now you've taken it even to another level where you're doing uh, these
Yeah,
think tanks like quarterly, and that they're freaking amazing, what you're doing.
thank you. Yeah, that was actually a happy accident because I've got a business coach that he said, for our 15th anniversary, he said, you're going to have 400 to 500 of the biggest names in the industry there. I think you should make a list of the 20 of them that you think have a high degree of probability of saying yes to spending 5 to 10 grand with you for a weekend. And I was like, okay. And I made a list of 20 people. And the first 6 people I talked to said, sure, I'm in. You were one of those, Kevin. You know, uh, it's funny because I literally, I was like, oh, this person would be, I think that I have enough rapport and response potential with them that they'd be like, yeah, like I trust that you would bring together 10 people that would be worth spending a weekend with. Second, people that I knew could have, 5 to 10 grand wasn't going to break the bank for them. And then third was somebody that I just felt like if they said no, it wasn't going to break my heart or anything. That was basically his. And so I did that. And because he was trying to help me figure out a new business model. And he said, how cool would it be if, like, once a quarter, you just put on cool events with great people in very exotic, luxurious locations, and you made like an extra $300,000 to $600,000 a year from just doing that, like on top of your regular business. And I'm like, that would be great. And he said, let's just start with a simple, alpha model. Like, let's just do a beta test. And just the worst thing that happens, he said, just tell everybody you talk to and just say, hey, no harm, no foul. If you're not interested, I'll never bring it up to you again. And the first 6 people I talked to said yes. And I was like, coach, they all said yes. What are we doing with them? And he was like, what are we doing with them? And I was like, what do you mean? And this guy had a $600 million exit. So I was thinking he would be my, like, my huckleberry. He'd be like the expert, like, kind of holding court. And he hosts masterminds as well. And he's like, bro, your coaching for you isn't filling the mastermind. Your coaching for you is, this is time for you to host your own event. You always put people on stage and you do the thing, and it's time for you to be the guy. And I'm like, wow, okay. So that's when I decided, oh, this thing that I do for the guest speakers, they always rave about it. And I mean, these aren't your regular hot seats. These are basically, it's normal for the person in the hot seat to cry because it's a 3 hour hot seat where the person, the experts sitting around the table are not allowed to give any suggestions, solutions, or ideas for the first hour. All you can do is ask clarification questions. So when you have, I call it the expert forge of, 5 to 10 people who are world class at the thing that you're trying to unlock and figure out, and they're just drilling into you and drilling in and drilling in. It's, they're asking hard questions like, what have you tried? What haven't you tried? How many people on your team? What's your org chart look like? What were your revenues last year? What was your profit margins? What were the revenues the year before? How much of what you tried that didn't work were you responsible for it not working? Stuff like that, like where it just gets really intense, really deep.
Yeah, I
really
remember
quick.
one of them. I went to the first one that you did. I paid actually. I paid. David called me and he said, "This is what thinking about doing this. What's the price?" He's like 5 grand. I said, "Yeah, I'll be 5. I'll do it." I'm like, I don't know if I really want to be on the hot seat. So let me think of that. I have a few issues, but I don't know. But I can just get value just by being there, just by showing up and like, can I be a fly on the wall? And David's like, well, I don't know. We're not really doing that. So he had to get that some thoughts. And so he ended up putting me on a panel, a couple panels, and that's where I met a couple of the other guests that have actually been either have been on the Marketing Misfits or will be on the Marketing Misfits, Katie and Kat, and super smart people. And I remember one of the guys was there, and he was like you said, the grilling. He was like, "Yeah, we're getting I forget his exact numbers. I'm making this up, but we're getting like 30 leads a week, and we're closing 2 of them or something like that. We just can't grow." So they didn't just let that go. They're like, "Okay, who's answering the phone? Oh, it's this guy. Well, who are you passing him to? What is he saying? What are his exact words? Well, oh, you need to change. No, you're saying these 5 words. You got to quit. These 2 words need to go out of your vocabulary. You need to change it to these 3 words, and watch your conversions go. It's that specific." And then there's another guy that I end up with my podcast studio that was there. Um, that I ended up after he has a podcast, set up a podcast studio business, and he was, had some growing pains, and the group went through everything, and at the end of it, he just had to sit there because it's so intense. It's like he just had to sit there and collect himself, and like you could see a little tear come out of some of the people's eye. It was that good, and I'm like, this is good, David. You're making a difference in people's lives, and it's really really cool. And then you went way and above. You talk about marketing, and your marketing misfits. You weren't just satisfied. Okay, people came and paid me 5 grand. A lot of these people, you curated a group of people around the speaker. You got their pain point and said, okay, let me find people, and you like busted down walls. You called Norm on the second one, like, hey, I need someone that knows Amazon or off Amazon, like going from Amazon to Shopify. I need something like you were like turning over every stone. It's not like, okay, I got some people in my Rolodex. If they're not in my Rolodex, you're like hunting them down. You're like posting on social media, like following one person's lead to another person's lead to another person's lead until you find the right people and you put them in that room. And I remember the guy that had the Shopify thing. I was in on his deal, and he came in with a set objective, and he's like a set problem. When he left, he completely changed everything. His whole mind says like, what I came in here to get help on, I'm not even going to do anymore. Everybody in this room talked me out of it, and he's like, this has like been the best thing ever. But then David, from a marketing point of view, on the people that come in, some of them are local, some of them fly in, he on their own dime, or they come in to help out. But he took care of them. It's not just like, okay, show up, thank you very much, like you see at a lot of conferences. Appreciate you coming out. Enjoy some free water and grab some chips. It was he took care of them. He's like, David went out. This impressed me. He went out for every person. I don't know if it's every person, but I saw you do it for several people. And he actually thought about this and actually got custom gifts for every single person that was there. That especially, I got one. I saw a couple other people get them. I don't know if every single person got it, but the people that he wanted to make sure that he actually went out and he's like thought about them. I wasn't like, okay, let me make this. Go buy a bunch of fancy chocolates and give everybody a box of chocolates for coming. It was like, all right, what is something that's very unique for Kevin, and let me go get a present. He got me. I have it sitting here by my cigar thing, Norm, in the house. I have a little box of the little the K, on
Right.
on the glass, and then he did the same thing for other people. And it's like, here, I just appreciate your time. I just want to give you some. But just doing that, most people don't. When it comes to marketing, that's what you could call that a misfit, but that's a smart fit when you actually do that, because those little things, you'd be surprised in marketing how much those little things go over and above. On my first BDSS that I did in Austin, 2019, at the Driscoll, you were there, Norm. We were
Yep.
smoking cigars on the balcony with everybody, which is now a tradition. We're doing it in Hawaii on the beach as a formal event. But to get people everybody that bought a ticket, because this was a I think it was $6,500 ticket. I actually sent them a care package from Austin. Mark went out and sourced this, and we got like barbecue sauce and like all this awesome stuff. Put it in this special box. It cost me about $150 a person, plus another $50 to ship this shit. So like $200 a person to send this out. But I sent that out as a care, like, hey, welcome to Austin. You're going to have a good time in Austin. I want to get you prepped for Austin, and they loved it. And what did they do? Because this was my first event, so people were like $6,500 to actually come to this event. I know Kevin. I know he's pretty smart. I know it'd probably be okay. But man, this is a lot of freaking money, plus my airfare, plus my hotel. I send that to them. And they're like, holy cow, this is freaking amazing. Then what do? They take pictures of it and they show it on social media. Look what Kevin just sent me. Everybody else is seeing that. What is that? Oh, it's for a $1 billion Solar Summit. You should go. I'm going. You should come. You should come. How many tickets did I sell off the back of that? Just for doing that little gesture. That's something that I think our society has lost, and something that David is very good at. Not just at his think tank where he did that, but I've seen him do it other places too. He takes care of people and he shows appreciation. He makes sure to come up and shake your hand, make sure he come up and give you time and acknowledge you. And that's something that a lot of people just don't do. How much have you seen that really happen at any events or stuff that you go to, Norm?
Yeah, that's sort of the personal side. The personal relationships have gone away, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because of the digital thing with Zoom now. But if you're the person and you're going through, and I learned this through YEO, going up to people, introducing yourself, making a little bit of small talk, but just getting people. Well, one of the reasons I grew this bloody beard is so people would remember me. And I'd go up and I'd shake their hand and I'd talk to them. I'd always take their name twice so I could remember their name. It's just not a name. But I want to talk about something that's incredible. And this is from what I heard from Kevin. I've never been to your think tank, but the moderator, being able to moderate and do it effectively, that's a skill set that very few people can do. I just going through YEO forums. If you were doing a forum, which was once a month, but we do these retreats, you'd bring in a moderator because none of us could moderate properly. And I hear you're incredible at that. Where did you get those skills?
Well, thank you for the kind words. And let's see, where did I get this skill? I think it has to do with it is a combination of things. I don't know that it's a skill. I think what it is when I started doing these for the guest speaker at I Am Party, it always felt like such an absolute privilege to be able to be in that seat, because candidly, to be a little vulnerable, there were often times when, even though I had sold a business, when I came into this industry of digital marketers, there were a lot of these folks that were making, tens of millions of dollars, like hand over fist, just printing money. And they were doing it back when, AdWords first started, and when Facebook first started, and when email marketing was like just, you could just print money. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you still can. There was so many different things that at the inception of it was just people were mopping up the floor in business. And I had this feeling of like, wow, all these people are people that everyone else would stand in line to get a picture with them, or paying tens of thousands of dollars to be in their mastermind or whatnot. And here I was in a seat where I was sitting next to them with a room full of people that were experts at solving their biggest problem, that was going to lead to an extra 6 or 7 figure win. And I had the privilege to moderate that. And so it's easy for me to be a really good listener when there's really intelligent people in the room. Like it's almost like my brain latches on really nicely. You know how sometimes it's like hard to pay attention to certain things, and then other times you're just like it's like a heat seeking missile. Like you can't not be on to the thing. And that's what it feels like for me, is just this privilege of getting to be the one, that all of a sudden you've got people like Noah Kagan and Roland Frazier and Craig Clemens and Jay Abraham, and like legends in the world of business and marketing, that are now kind of competing for who's going to ask the best question and who's going to give the best solution. And it's like, well, sometimes people will start to give solutions and ideas during the question part. And it's just so easy and empowering and fun to be able to tell this person that normally no one ever tells them no, like, hey, we're not there yet. And to know that I've done that enough times that what ends up happening is fast forward an hour down the road and it'll be really clear that the solution that they were so eager to give, that they had to give because they knew it was a thing, isn't the right solution for this particular person in that particular situation, because 3 minutes later someone would ask some clarification question that would invalidate the thing they were so excited about talking about. And so it's almost kind of fun to just be the one that's holding that space and getting to shut down people that are not used to getting shut down, and not from an ego place, but like, no, now's not the right time. It's like giggling at a funeral. It's not the right time, you know. um so there's a time to giggle, and then maybe that's afterwards when you're having great memories over drinks and stuff about the person that's not with us anymore. But that's not the right time to be doing it while the eulogy is being read. So it's the same kind of thing, you know. It's like there's a time and the place, and I just find it. I think it's almost a bit of a, you know, nature nurture. I think some of it is nature. I think it's part of my natural way of being. Is I love being really present with things that matter and people that matter, and I love to be able. I kind of feel like I've always been the JV guy and the affiliate guy and the connector guy and the broker guy. And when I get in that seat of being the facilitator is what I call it. I just feel like something turns on in me in the same way that when you watch those videos of like the 98-year-old, 100-year-old person scrunched over, their fingers can hardly move, and you put them in front of a piano, and there used to be a concert pianist, and all of a sudden their whole body transforms and their fingers move like puppets, and they just like come fully alive. I feel like that's what happens to me when I'm in that facilitator seat. It's like I'm just paying attention to all the different experts and who's checked out and who hasn't said anything the entire time. And almost always they've got something that if I call on them, because there's always going to be your people that are really loud and boisterous, and they're like, they always want to take control of the room, you know. You probably can think of a couple of people like that right now in the seller industry, that they're always the loudest person, they're always center of attention. But sometimes there's somebody that's super quiet, super introverted, that they're going to say something that's 100 times smarter than the loudest, most boisterous, most popular person. And so I like finding those moments, and yeah. I hope I've answered your question.
Oh yeah, yeah, you have. And I guess the other thing, because of your connections, these huge connections that you have, marketing must be fairly simple. The hard part is, well, for you, it's just getting those connections. That's part of your overall marketing. So when you're doing these think tanks, what do you have to do other than word of mouth?
Well, a couple things I want to say. The first one I did was 5K. They're now 15,000. And part of that is because I had some of the experts actually get mad at me, like literally, like
It was
really
too
good,
low. It was too low. It was too low.
really
I was
good.
like, that's why 6 people said yes right away. Because I have 5 grand. Hell yeah, this is like pennies on the ground for the
Yeah.
value you get from this.
And then the getting the experts, I find that to be, whew, you know how there's certain challenges that are
You like
that
that.
are
You like that hunt. You
all
like that hunt.
they're almost overwhelming. They're almost like, how am I going to pull this off? Like, but at the same time, it's like, I know I can pull this off. You know what I mean? It's um I've heard it said that, you know, Mick Jagger and he still gets butterflies before he goes on stage after all these years, you know? And so it's not that it doesn't get me nervous that I'm, you know, am I going to be able to put the right ultra mega my one of my favorite things to do is to have the person that's the navigator, they're the one getting the hot seat, sit in that chair, well, because they don't ever know exactly who the experts are. And then what we do is for the first 10 minutes is I go and I give everybody 30 seconds to a minute to share what earned them the right to be an expert at that think tank. And when they go around that room, and let's say it's the person that's, they're like, "Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do paid traffic because my business is affiliate driven," and they'll be like, "Hi, my name is Nick Coates, and I run Sawtooth Media. We've probably done about $800 million in paid traffic over the last 6 years. I used to be head of business development at ClickBank, and like yada yada." And then they're like, "Whoa, how'd you get them here?" And then the next person is like, "Oh, hi, my name is Jason Kutasi. I sold my business for $300 million, da da da," and it was all affiliate driven. But we moved to paid traffic, and that's when we really took off. And it's like, and everybody that's in the expert seat thinks they're a big deal because they have a $30 million company, until the next guy is like, "No, our company does 300 million a quarter." And they're like, "Whoa." So there's almost this kind of like really beautiful dance. Then the next thing you know, the guy who's the biggest person in the room will end up realizing, like, he doesn't know some of the things that some of the people that are way smaller than him know, and they end up partnering together. So there's like this value vortex that gets created amongst the experts themselves. Sometimes the experts will end up getting more value than the person in the hot seat, because the experts already have so much momentum that if you're going if you're going 500 miles an hour, a 1 degree shift in angle, you'll end up in New York City instead of Chicago. You know what I mean? So with that in mind, a lot of times the experts will have, they get as much value, if not more, than the person sitting in the hot seat when they came to give. And that's one of the most beautiful things about it. And so because I know that, it makes it easy. It's almost like, I don't care whether you're a Burning Man person or not, you've already seen enough pictures of it that if there's the perfect person to go to Burning Man and they've never been, it's my job to get them to go, because I know how much they're going to thank me for it later. You know what I mean? So it just becomes kind of a fun challenge of knowing that they come into this thing thinking that it's another mastermind, or thinking that I'm asking them to give free consulting, or thinking that I'm crazy for asking them to fly to Austin on their own dime and come and help me in my business when I'm getting paid to help the person that I'm getting paid from and for. But all those to shatter all those misconceptions, so that by the end of it, they're like, "I can't believe I'm saying yes to you, but I think I'm in." And then what'll end up happening is they'll call somebody like Alex Sharfin or Kevin or Ron Lynch or Tom Shipley, and they'll go, "Hey, this guy Dave Gonzalez just called me and asked me if I'd fly to Austin in a month. Like, I live in Tampa or Tucson or Toronto, and like, or even Costa Rica or whatever." And they're like, "Is this guy
Colombia,
legit?" Huh?
Colombia. And one dude's
Yeah, yeah,
been
Colombia. And they'll
yeah.
be like, "Is this guy legit?" And they'll be like, "You need to get there. Like, in fact, you need to get there before he fills the expert seats, because there's only 10 to 12 of those seats. And once he fills them, like, he'll just says, 'Yeah, we don't need you after all.'"
Yeah,
So,
I highly, I've been to the two that you've done, and I highly recommend anybody listening out there, either if you want to be a navigator and have your business analyzed by some of the smartest people in the world when it comes to marketing and entrepreneurship, or if you are someone that knows quite a bit, how would people on that before we, how would people actually is it what website do they go to actually get information on that, or how
oh,
do they?
3daythinktank.com. Um, and I actually now have it to where I sell 10 experience passes, where if somebody, because after we did the one you did, Kevin, I had Brian Kazabuki and Greg Jeffries came up to me, and they're like, "Hey man, I got so much value from being able to sit as a fly on the wall that even if I hadn't gotten the think tank, this would have been worth 10 or 15 grand." And I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, you left money on the table by not offering
Yeah.
people the chance to just come and maybe not stay in the mansion, because there's only 10 bedrooms. Um, and but, like, there was Airbnbs that are within a 5-minute walking distance. It's out in like the hill country right next to the lake, Lakeway. And so I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna start doing that." So now I've got uh experience passes that I'm selling as well for those, and I do them typically. It's the first weekend of the first month of the quarter. So the third month of the quarter. So one in March, one in June, one in September, and one in December. First full weekend.
And one of the things you did cool at the second one that you did is you actually you did a charity component, which I thought was really, really cool. So there's a local, you put out the word on Facebook. I don't know, it's kind of almost last minute. You had the idea like, hey, I want to actually give back, not just that people are like paying a lot of money, but do something good for a cause. So there was a local charity in Austin that you invited their team, their executive team, to come in. So it wasn't like one person in the hot seat. It was like, I think it was three of them: their marketing girl, one of the co-founders, and the
Yep.
president or something like that. And then you asked some of the experts, like, hey, do you mind just hanging around? We're going to do a modified version, not quite as long, but help them out in their pain points of raising money for their charity and stuff. And that was really freaking cool too.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge you, by the way, for A, bringing that up, and B, for sticking around, because I was a little. It was a little bit. Yeah, in anything you do, there's nothing that's just all gold. Sometimes there's shadow, and sometimes there's dark. And you're like, damn it, that didn't quite go the way I wanted. But when we had just finished this think tank, and it was kind of, yeah, it was like, hey, there's a bonus piece to this. Is I had this nonprofit called Austin Safe Alliance, and they're a shelter, and they're a harbor, and they're a resource for people that have been sex trafficked, or that have been abused, or that have been battered, or who have been, and they've been put in situations that are really, really, like, either life threatening or just extraordinarily traumatic. And they, they won the competition to get a think tank, but I didn't have enough time to source the experts that they needed. So what I decided to do is, hey, everybody that's here, if you'd like, I'd like to have you be part of a strategy session, so that we together can come up with what's the best experts we need, and what are the experts that and so it's not just me sourcing the experts. We could, we'd have a bigger, better net to cast from. And it was a little bit disconcerting that I said that to the entire crew. And maybe 4 or 5 people stuck around, and you were one of them, Kevin. So I want to acknowledge you for that. Not only did you stick around, but you were really paid a lot of attention. You were really engaged, and you really brought a lot of value to that conversation. It was really, really a nice thing to see.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But you had someone else there that just like they would say something. I know a guy for that. Oh, I know a guy. That guy was sitting to the left of me. I forget. He like was super connected on a lot of the issues that could solve a lot of their pain points too. Do you remember who that was?
Um, Geez, you got to remember, I did almost 10 think tanks that weekend, not including that thing. So, like, I feel a little embarrassed that I don't remember, but it's kind of like when you're just like, bam, 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 back to back, hosting and, coordinating. And
So they say in business that if you want to learn networking and being around people, you never want to be the smartest person in the room, like you just said. But sometimes the smartest person in the room, like you just said, can actually learn from the people that were doing less. Like you just said. But you always want to be in rooms where you're like, you think you're the big cow, and then everybody else around you is bigger, because that's where you're going to learn. But a lot of people, they go when they want to learn, they use like self help books, or they use like strategy books or something like that. But a lot of people say that's not the best way to actually learn. Read biographies of successful people. Read Elon Musk biography, or read, whoever it is that you admire or that's been good in business. Read their biography. You basically, by doing these think tanks and by doing all these internet marketing parties, you've been reading lots of biographies face to face. So what would what would you say for the people listening, just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, are some key things that you see that are common among these very successful people that you admire, that you think that other people need to, like, hey, pay attention to this and this and this characteristics of? I'm not saying like, this is their marketing plan or whatever, but what are some things that you see that really set apart the big time players and the winners from the just everyday guys that are just doing okay?
um, the big time, the winners. And it depends on what area of life you're talking about. If you're talking about the area of business, they almost always have team figured out. They learn how to lead. They learn how to build teams, and they Also tend to be really good at modularizing their skill sets, which is like they learn a basic fundamental foundational piece and they get really good at, and then they build another piece on top of it and another piece on top of it, but they know all the pieces well, so that they're not relying on others, but as a result of having those fundamental foundational modular pieces, they can then hire and build teams and know when their teams are doing well or not. Another one, and probably the most significant one that's come as a result of me hosting all these think tanks, because I've done one pretty much one a month for over 13 years before I started doing them like this. And that was the most important element in scaling a business is not speed, it's clarity. And all of the individuals that I've seen that become really big and successful, they figure out how to get really clear on what really matters, and then that's what they work on. So, right now, if there's any part of your business that isn't working as well as you want it to, that's only because there's something you're not clear about. There's a gap that you're not clear about. There's a solution you're not clear about. There's a skill set you're not clear about. And you're either pretending not to know or you don't know. And once you get clear on what that is, you now have a choice as to whether you figure out how to fix it yourself, like inside of yourself as a skill set, or as or you hire it out. But if you don't know what it is, you can't fix it. And if you're not willing to look at it, because there's some things I think that sometimes people have, even sometimes there's that idea that our biggest failure isn't fear of our biggest success fear isn't fear of failure, but it's fear of success, because sometimes success comes with, I mean, this is something I'm sure both of you have noticed, but I've noticed in my life. There's been times when I got the prize and I was like, well, how come nobody told me that this prize came with these things that I didn't expect? Like, oh wow, now I have to just, like, it's kind of like getting a pool, how your dream home, and now it has a big giant yard and a pool, and you're like, well, I've never had to take care of a yard and a pool. Like, how does that work? Like, and then you're like, I spent all my money on the house and the pool, and I don't have money for the groundskeeper and the pool guy. So I've got to learn to do, you know what I mean? I'm using that as an analogy, but like, I've had it be to where there's been certain things that I got in life that I didn't realize, like, oh, there's like a whole new set of unforeseen challenges and pitfalls that I didn't know I was going to have to face. Like, I remember when I finally got myself out of debt, um I realized, and this is getting a little bit vulnerable, I realized that I had been hiding behind the debt so that I wouldn't have to make some important decisions around my family. And once I cleared the debt, now I had the responsibility of being able to take care of some of the things with my family. And I'm not talking about like my wife and daughter. I'm talking about extent, like, brothers, cousins, parents, sisters, things like that. That I was like, wow, I was able to hide behind the wall of like, well, I have this big debt and like I can't really help. Now I didn't have that debt anymore. And it's like, wow, now does that make me selfish for wanting to build my wealth over helping that? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, there's like these weird nuanced pieces that people don't necessarily tell you, that when you get the prize, sometimes it comes with, oh, like, by the way, not only do you get this prize, you have to pay 2/3 more in insurance now. Or or now you don't know who your real friends are, and now, like, different things like that. I'm not trying to get all deep and heavy or anything, but where I was going with that is that, like, the clarity leads to momentum, leads to scale, but just know that sometimes getting what you want ain't always what you think it was gonna be. So enjoy the ride along the way, because that's a counterpoint that I would say. There's been a handful of people that I've met and gotten to know well and spent quality time around, that on the surface they're very successful, but there's a lot missing in their life. They don't have things that would be the case that would, if somebody's making like 150,000 a year and they have these other things figured out, they're happier than the person that's making 150 million a year sometimes.
I agree completely.
So
good stuff, David. This has been awesome. Norm, I think you have a question for David before we let him go.
I do. Very good, Kevin. So at the end of every podcast, we ask our guest, do you know a misfit?
yes, absolutely, 100%. I don't even have to think for a second. He's actually the person that I referenced a little while ago that helped me build the brand. He's the person that got me into this industry. He's the person I said that was, earlier when I said he was making millions of dollars selling hypnosis CDs. His name's Michael Lovitch, and he is about as true to the word misfit as you can say. He dresses like a homeless person. If you see him at masterminds and stuff, he's usually making more money than almost anyone there, but he looks like he couldn't afford a cup of coffee. He's hilarious. He's the most loudest, funniest, interesting guy that you would never know has the biggest heart of gold. But I think you'll really enjoy having him on the show if he'll do it, which he'll probably do it. I'll put in a really good word for you guys.
Okay, fingers crossed. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. I hope I didn't overtalk there. I was just, I'm a big fan of Michael. He's one of my favorite people on the planet.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Not at all. So David, so 3daythinktank.com, or what are other ways? I am
party.com, like as an internet marketing party.com. I want to acknowledge our annual sponsor at I Am Party Digistore that like makes it to where if you ever come to a party, you get free drinks. Which is awesome.
That's awesome. There you go. Appreciate it, David. Thanks for taking some time and sharing. This has been awesome. Been cool stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Keep up the good work.